Okay, Sheikh. If you can introduce the topic then, Akil. We're live now. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Excellent. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. To proceed, we welcome you warmly to another week of lectures under the banner of Islam for Death. And it's a continuation of our program, Seeking Protection from the Hellfire, where we welcome our esteemed Sheikh and our elder, Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Maliki, may Allah preserve him. And tonight's lecture will be, tonight's lecture will be entitled Three Qualities Abandoned on the Day of Resurrection. So we ask our Sheikh to proceed with thanks. فَلْيَتَفَضَّلُوا مَشْكُورًا, and we ask Allah that He opens up for our Sheikh.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على محمد رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين أما بعد.
Indeed, all praises are due to Allah, and peace and salutations and the most complete blessings are to be showered upon the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and upon his wives and those who follow them until the day of resurrection. To proceed.
لا زلنا مع سلسلة الأحاديث التي تنص على أعمال من اجتنبها وقي من النار.
So we continue in this series of lectures that are based around prophetic sayings of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that indicate actions and means by which we can seek refuge and protection from the fire.
من هذه الأحاديث حديث أبي ذر الغفاري رضي الله تعالى عنه، هذا الصحابي الجليل، وهذا الحديث هو من الأحاديث الصحيحة التي يرويها الإمام مسلم وغيره. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: ثلاثة لا يكلمهم الله يوم القيامة ولا ينظر إليهم ولا يزكيهم ولهم عذاب أليم: المسبل والمنان والمنفق سلعته بالحلف الكاذب. ولنا مع كل واحدة من هذه الصفات الذميمة وقفات. نعم.
شيخنا الثلاث: المسبل والمنان
والمنفق سلعته بالحلف الكاذب، يعني الذي يحلف على ليبيع بضاعته وهو كاذب.
بارك الله فيكم شيخنا. And the narration that we are going to look at today, it's been reported by the esteemed and lofty companion of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, and it's a narration that's been reported by Imam Muslim and others, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, there are three types of people that will not be spoken to, that Allah will not speak to on the day of resurrection, nor will he look at them, nor will he purify them, and they will have a severe torment. And these three are the person who drags their lower garment below their ankle, the منان. شيخنا معنى المنان وفقكم الله؟
المنان الذي يعطي مثلا صدقة ثم يتكلم بها، أعطيتك وأعطيته وكذا.
جزاكم الله خير. And the second one is the individual who gives in charity and then they talk about it. They make a big issue about the fact that they've given it and they draw the people's attention to it. And the third category is the person who sells their product or participates in a sales transaction, and when they do, they make an oath or they swear by Allah, and they're lying when they make this oath. And the format of the lecture today will be that I will go through these three categories and I shall explain each one so that you can understand them.
يقول عليه الصلاة والسلام أول هؤلاء الثلاثة المسبل، والمسبل هو الذي أرخى ملابسه إلى ما أسفل الكعب من الرجال، يعني من الرجال، فمن أرخى ملابسه أسفل الكعب فقد عرض نفسه للنار. نعم.
So the first category of these three categories of people is the individual, or are the individuals who are musbil. Now this means that they wear their lower garment such that it drags over their ankles, or that it falls beneath their ankles. And of course, when we talk about this, we're talking and we refer to males. So this is a ruling that is specific to males. So when a male individual does this, this is from the reasons or from the means that earns Allah's anger and will get them cast into the hellfire.
ويدخل في ذلك الثوب والسروال والإزار، فكل هذه الأنواع، وحتى ما يعرف بالعباءة أو المشلح أو البشت، كل ما يلبسه الرجل ليغطي جسده إلى أسفله فلا يجوز له أن يجعله أسفل من الكعب. نعم.
And when we talk about this, this encompasses the upper garment, the lower garment, what we can call the shirwal, and all of these types of dresses that the individual, that the man wears, that go beneath the lower part of their body. So any of these types of clothing, were they to fall beneath the ankle, then they take the ruling of this.
قد جاء في الحديث عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عند البخاري أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ما أسفل من الكعبين من الإزار ففي النار، أي أن القدر الذي يغطيه الإزار ثوبا أو سروالا أو إزارا الذي يغطيه أسفل من الكعب، فهذا الجزء من الجسم سيعذب في النار.
And it's been reported by Imam al-Bukhari on the authority of Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, indeed, that which is below the ankles, the two ankles, then it is in the fire, giving us an indication that whatever the individual wears as a lower garment that falls beneath the ankle, it's a reason for their punishment in the hereafter.
قال الإمام الخطابي رحمه الله: معناه أن الذي دون الكعبين من القدم يعذب عقوبة كما ذكره الحافظ في الفتح.
And the scholar Al-Khattabi, he mentioned that, referring to this hadith, that the meaning is that that which is beneath the lower ankles as a result of the individual doing this will be punished in a real sense in the hereafter. And this is as mentioned by the other scholar Al-Hafidh Ibn Hajar in his book, The Explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari, Fathul Bari.
وجاء في حديث آخر عند الإمام أحمد من طريق أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: الإزار إلى نصف الساق وإلى الكعبين، يعني حده الكعب، لا خير في أسفل من ذلك. وأيضا جاء عند أحمد بلفظ آخر: فلا حق للإزار فيما دون الكعبين. وكلا الحديثين صححهما الألباني في السلسلة الصحيحة.
شيخنا أكرمكم الله، الرواية الثانية
لا حق، فلا حق للإزار فيما دون الكعبين.
بارك الله فيكم شيخنا. And it's been reported also by Imam Ahmad on the authority of Anas ibn Malik, the companion of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, who said that the lower garment should be to halfway of the shin, or if it must, then halfway over the ankle, and it should not be underneath the ankle, because there is no good in that which is below the ankle. And in another narration, it's been reported that he said that there is no right for the izar, for the lower garment, to be beneath the ankle. And both of these narrations have been authenticated, declared authentic by Sheikh Al-Albani, may Allah have mercy upon him.
وقال الحافظ العراقي رحمه الله تعالى قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا حق للإزار في الكعبين يقتضي أنه يحرم أن يبلغ به إلى الكعبين كما نقله المناوي في شرح شمائل الترمذي.
And the Hafiz al-Iraqi, he mentioned explaining this hadith, as this is a hadith, not a narration on Anas, as I mentioned. These are narrations on the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. He mentioned when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that there is no right for the lower garment to be below the ankles. The scholar Al-Hafidh Al-Iraqi, he mentioned this necessitates that this action is prohibited and it's haram, it's not allowed. And this was mentioned by Al-Manawi in another work as well.
في شرح شمائل الترمذي شمائل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم.
بارك الله فيكم.
نعم.
In his explanation of the characteristics of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him.
وهذا لا يشمل من كان ثوبه أو سرواله يسقط عن غير قصد ثم هو يرفعه يتعاهده كما كان أبو بكر الصديق رضي الله تعالى عنه، فإنه لم يكن يقصد. قد جاء عند البخاري ومسلم من حديث عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من جر ثوبه خيلا يعني كبرا لم ينظر الله إليه يوم القيامة. قال أبو بكر يا رسول الله إن أحد شقي إزاري يسترخي، يعني حتى ليس كل الإزار وإنما أحد الشقين لعله يعني به علة، لعله يعني ضعيف من أعلى فيسترخي، إلا أن أتعاهد ذلك منه، يعني أني كل بعد لحظات أتفقد إزاري فإن وجدته ارتخى رفعته. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لست ممن يصنع خيلاء. لماذا؟ ليس لأنه أبو بكر، لا، لكن لأنه يتعاهده فيرفعه. فكل من كان إزاره واسعا أو يعني حصل له إشكال أو كذا، أو ربما لم يكن عنده ثوب فاستعار ثوب أحد من أصدقائي أو إخواني فكان طويلا فهو يرفعه، فلا حرج في مثل هذا إذا نسيه وارتخى لأنه عن غير قصد.
And this prohibition, however, it does not include those whose lower garment falls without their actual intention of it falling. And this is just as Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the companion of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, his lower garment was falling beneath his ankle. It's been reported on the authority, or it's been collected by Imam al-Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with them, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whosoever drags their thobe out of pride, so they drag their thobe such that they drag their garment beneath their ankles out of pride, then Allah does not look towards them on the day of resurrection. And Abu Bakr, he said, how about me, O Messenger of Allah, because indeed half of my lower garment, it falls beneath my ankle, and I have to keep pulling it up. So it wasn't that he was just wearing it beneath his ankles, rather he wore it, and then after some time it would fall and drop beneath his ankle, and then he would have to pull it up such that it would be above his ankle. and this may have been due to some reason or defect in his clothing, not because he was intentionally dragging it. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to him, "You're not from those people who do this out of pride." And he didn't say this to him, meaning the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, didn't say this to him because it was Abu Bakr, such an esteemed character, saying this to him or asking him. Rather, he gave this ruling due to the fact that Abu Bakr, he was trying to pull the garment up. So it wasn't intentional on the part of Abu Bakr. May Allah be pleased with him. So this is the case for whoever drops their garment from the males unintentionally. This is the same ruling for them. So if, for example, an individual borrows their friend's thobe or the thobe or the lower garment of someone else, and it keeps dropping beneath their ankle and they keep pulling it up, then they are similarly excused as Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, was excused.
وأما هذا بخصوص الرجال. أما النساء فعلى عكس الرجال يجب أن ترخيه حتى يكون أسفل قدمها شبرا أو ذراعا، لما جاء عند النسائي بسند صححه، عند الترمذي والنسائي بسند صححه الألباني، عن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنهما قال: قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: من جر ثوبه خيلا لم ينظر الله إليه يوم القيامة. فقالت أم سلمة أم المؤمنين رضي الله عنها: فكيف يصنع النساء بذيولهن؟ يعني يسمى ذيل ما كان أسفل من الكعب. قال: يرخين شبرا. فقالت: إذا تنكشف أقدامهن، شبر تحت القدم تقول ينكشف. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم: فيرخينه ذراعا ولا يزدن عليه، لأن الزيادة على الذراع يكون مبالغة. انظر إلى حرص أمهات المؤمنين ونساء المؤمنين يوم ذاك، وانظر إلى تساهل نسائنا اليوم كيف يكشفن عن سوقهن، بل حتى يرفعن إلى أعلى من ركبهن، وربما تبنطلن فجسمن يعني أجسادهن. كيف تنظر المرأة إلى مثل هذا الحديث وتصنع مثل هذا العمل عياذا بالله. نعم.
And what we have said, this is all relating to men and the clothes, the manners of wearing clothes of males. As for females, their ruling and the situation with them is the opposite of what we have taken for men. And the ruling for them is that their garment should run over their feet, either a handspan or an arm span. And we benefit this from the narration that's been reported by At-Tirmidhi and An-Nasa'i, two of the scholars and the compilers of hadith, on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with them, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Whosoever drags their thobe, their garment, out of pride, then Allah does not look, or beneath their meaning beneath their ankles, then Allah does not look towards them." And then Salama, who was the mother of the believers, she questioned the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and she said, how about us women? Because if we were to do that, our feet would be exposed. So this shows us that the feet should be covered. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, you can allow it to go over your ankles by a handspan. And she said, but if it was a handspan, still our feet would be exposed when we move, for example. So then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, okay, then you may extend it by an arm span. However, you mustn't increase over this. And the reason for not increasing over an arm span is because to do so would be exaggerating and would be excess. So here we can see and we note the keenness of the mothers of the believers. In this case, Salama, may Allah be pleased with her. And we can compare it, unfortunately, with the laxity of the women of today, where they may not even cover their ankles, or they may wear trousers that show their shapes, etc. And we can juxtapose this with the condition of the mothers of the believers, and we ask these, or we would say to these women, where are you from this hadith, from this narration that we have mentioned?
وأما الصنف الثاني من الثلاثة المذكورين في هذا الحديث فهو المنان، وهو الذي ينفق مما آتاه الله ويبذل ويتصدق على أهل أو على قرابات أو على أصحاب أو على فقراء، ثم لا يفتأ في كل مناسبة يتحدث بما أنفق، ليس تشجيعا للغير وإنما إذلالا للمتصدق عليه. وربما ذكر من أحسن إليه باسمه، يقول أحسنت إلى فلان، أعطيت فلان، أو ربما قال له أنا أعطيك وأنت تصنع معي هكذا، لا تقابل الإحسان بالإحسان، فأذله. ولعمري إمساك مع اعتذار خير من إنفاق مع من. نعم.
So the second group or category of people are those who give in charity, but when they do so, they give in charity to, for example, to their families or their relatives or their friends. And when they do so, they take every opportunity to remind the individuals that they have given them money or wealth in charity, so that they will then do things for them. And this it's not the case that they talk about the charity that they give in order to encourage others to give in charity. Rather, it's the case that they do so to show how benevolent they are, and also to get favors from those that they give to charity. So, for example, they will say, I will give you this money to help you out as an act of charity, but in return, you should do this favor for me. And if this is the case, then we say that withholding and not giving charity and not being like this is better than giving charity and behaving in such a manner.
والله تعالى يقول كما في الآية 263 من سورة البقرة: قول معروف ومغفرة خير من صدقة يتبعها أذى. المن أذى، يؤذي الإنسان في نفسه، ربما لو لم تعطه مالا ومساعدة تأذى في بدنه، لكن لو أعطيته ثم مننت عليه تأذى في قلبه، وهذا الأذى أشد وقعا من أذى الجسم.
شيخنا الآية 263. نعم. And that, barakallahu fikum, Shaykhana. And Allah mentions in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, the chapter of the cow, He mentions the condition of these people in verse number 263, where Allah the Most High, He says that which means kind speech and forgiveness are better than charity followed by injury. So charity that's followed up by giving someone harm. And this is because the individual, they might suffer temporarily in their bodies or in some sort of manner or fashion if charity is withheld against them. However, if an individual gives them in charity and then keeps reminding them of this favor that they've done for them, then it not only harms them in their body and in the material sense, but it also affects their heart. It will damage them in this sense. So there is a compound problem that it causes.
أولا يعلم المنان أنه قد أذهب، أولا يعلم المنان بما أنفق أنه قد أذهب أجر ما قدم بسوء ما فعل. قال الله تعالى في الآية 264 من سورة البقرة: يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى فإن من أعطى الصدقة ثم من بها أذهب أجرها وأثم على ذلك.
So do these people, do they not realize this mannan, these people who give in charity for these reasons, do they not realize that what they give in charity, there is no good in it? And what they give in charity, it's devoid of any reward. And Allah the Most High says in the second chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, the chapter of the cow, in verse number 264, he says that, which means, O you who have believed, do not invalidate your charities with reminders or injury, as does one who spends their wealth only to be seen by the people and does not believe in Allah and the last day.
سمع ابن سيرين محمد بن سيرين رجلا يقول لآخر: أحسنت إليك وفعلت يعني قابلت الإحسان بإساءة. قال له ابن سيرين: اسكت فلا خير في المعروف إذا أحصي. أو قال: أحسنت إليك وفعلت، يعني يعدد مننه على المتصدق عليه. يقول له: أحسنت إليك وفعلت أي لك. فقال له ابن سيرين: اسكت فلا خير في المعروف إذا أحصي، إذا صرت تحصيه وتعده فيذله بفعله الخسيس. ورحم الله الإمام الشافعي إذ يقول: منن الرجال على القلوب أشد من وقع الأسنة. نعم، الأسنة يعني السيوف.
ما شاء الله شيخنا، لغة الشافعي لغة يحتج به، فما معنى؟
هو إمام في اللغة.
ما قوله منن الرجال؟
منن الرجال على القلوب أشد من وقع الأسنة.
نعم. جزاكم الله خير شيخنا. And we see that the scholar Muhammad ibn Sirin, he once heard a man talking or admonishing someone else, saying to them, look, I gave you this and I did such and such a good thing for you, and I did such and such a good thing for you, reminding the other person of what they had done. And Muhammad ibn Sirin, when he heard this, he said to him, be quiet, silence. There is no good in goodness that you do to someone else or for someone else if you then count it and you enumerate it. So there is no goodness in this. And with your enumerating it, it demeans what you have done. And also, may Allah have mercy upon Imam al-Shafi'i, the Imam whose language was at such a very high level, where he said that giving gifts or being benevolent to men or to people, and then reminding people of it is more difficult upon the hearts than swords, than actual physical harm.
وقال الشاعر: أفسدت بالمن ما قدمت من حسن ليس الكريم إذا أعطى بمنان.
And the poet said, indeed, you have ruined the goodness that you have put forward by the remembering or by the reminder that you have given it. والشطر الثاني من الشعر شيخنا؟
ليس الكريم إذا أعطى بمنان.
And when the generous gives, they are not like this. They do not remind people that they have bestowed upon them.
وما أجمل ما أوصى به لقمان الرجل الصالح ابنه وهو يوصيه، فقال له: يا بني، اثنتان لا تذكرهما أبدا، إساءة الناس إليك وإحسانك إلى الناس، واثنتان لا تنساهما أبدا إساءتك إلى الناس وإحسان الناس إليك.
شيخنا معذرة، الثاني الآخران
هي عكسها، قال
عكسها.
الثاني قال واثنتان لا تنساهما إساءتك إلى الناس. لا تنساها لأنها ستذكرك فلا تعود إلى الإساءة. وإحسان الناس إليك فلا تنسى لأنك كلما تذكرت إحسان الناس إليك عاملتهم بالحسنى.
ما شاء الله، جزاكم الله خير شيخنا. And we remind you of the statement of Luqman, the righteous man, when he gave advice to his son. And he said, there are two things that you should never ever mention or never remember. The first is the bad things that people do towards you. So you should never remember them and you should forget them. The second, the good that you have done to others. Again, you should forget this and never remember it. And there are two things that you should never forget: the bad or the ill that you have done to others. And he recommended him to never forget this, so it will be a reminder to treat people well in the future. And the second thing to not forget is the good that people have done to you, so that you can reciprocate that goodness with goodness.
أما القسم الثالث من أقسام الناس الوارد ذكرهم في هذا الحديث أن الله لا ينظر إليهم يوم القيامة ولا يكلمهم ولا يزكيهم ولهم عذاب أليم، المنفق سلعته بالحلف الكاذب. وهذا وإن كان يعني الأصل فيه البائع، لكن الحكم ينسحب أيضا على المشتري الذي يحلف كاذبا من أجل أن يأخذ السلعة بسعر أقل مما يطلب فيها صاحبها.
And the third category of individuals who Allah the Most High will not look at, nor will He talk to, nor will He purify, and they will have a grave torment on the day of standing. The third category of people are those who sell their items or sell their wares through false oaths. So this could be, for example, those who sell them, so the seller, or indeed it could be the buyer. It could be the buyer who makes a false oath in order to get the commodity or in order to get the thing at a reduced price.
ومن حلف بالله كاذبا على سلعة ليبيعها أو ليشتريها فقد ارتكب 4 محاذير.
And whoever gives a false oath by Allah in order to purchase something or in order to sell something, they have committed 4, or they have erred in 4 separate ways.
وهذه ال4 كل واحدة منها كبيرة من كبائر الذنوب.
And each of these 4 things that they have erred in, each single one of them is considered one of the major sins, each one of them.
الأولى استهانته باليمين ومخالفته لأمر الله عز وجل بحفظ اليمين، حيث قال الله عز وجل في الآية 89 من سورة المائدة: واحفظوا أيمانكم. وقال في الآية 224 من سورة البقرة: ولا تجعلوا الله عرضة لأيمانكم.
So the first of those things that they have done is that they have demeaned and reduced the worth of swearing by Allah the Most High. So they have made it something that is unworthy. And the second thing that they have done also, they have, by doing so, by demeaning it, they have contradicted and gone against the statement of Allah the Most High, where He has ordered the people to be truthful to their vows and truthful to their oaths. And also in the second chapter of the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah the Most High, He mentions in the verse number 224 he mentions that the people, as relates to the oaths, that they should and do not make your oath by Allah an excuse against being righteous and fearing Allah and making peace among people. So Allah censures and he blames those who make their oath an excuse. They make it a means of something else.
والثانية كذبه، والكذب كبيرة من كبائر الذنوب، والله عز وجل قد حذر من الكذب وبين أنه لا يحب الكاذبين. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: ولا يزال الرجل يكذب ويتحرى الكذب حتى يكتب عند الله كذابا.
The second sin that they have undertaken in doing this is that they have lied. And lying is from one of the major sins in the sight of Allah. And it's something that Allah has warned against. And it's also something that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, warned against. And one of the texts where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did this was where he said that which means, and indeed the individual does not cease to continue lying until they are written that by Allah that they are a liar.
وهو مخالف بكذبه أمر الله عز وجل الوارد في الآية 119 من سورة المائدة، حيث قال الله عز وجل: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين.
And also by lying they have gone against the order of Allah the Most High to be truthful. And this is where Allah says in the 5th chapter of the Quran, the chapter of the table that has been spread, Al-Ma'idah, where Allah the Most High says, O you who believe, fear Allah and be from those who speak the truth.
الثالثة وهي من كبائر الذنوب أكله المال الذي أخذه على هذه اليمين بالباطل، والله عز وجل قد نهى عن أكل المال بالباطل كما في الآية 188 من سورة البقرة. قال تعالى: ولا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل.
And the third thing that they have done in this, what they have done incorrectly, is that they have used up or they have squandered someone's wealth in falsehood, or they have falsely done this. Because what they have done, they have carried out a transaction dishonestly. And Allah the Most High prohibited this in Surah Al-Baqarah, the 2nd chapter of the Quran, in verse number 188, where he says to the people, and do not consume one another's wealth unjustly, or send it in bribery to rulers in order that they might aid you to consume a portion of the wealth of the people in sin.
والرابعة من هذه الآفات التي تحصل باليمين الكاذب لبيع السلع أن يمينه من أعظم الأيمان جرما، فهي تسمى باليمين الغموس التي تغمس صاحبها في النار، كما جاء في الصحيحين أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من حلف على يمين هو فيها فاجر يقتطع بها مال امرئ مسلم لقي الله وهو عليه غضبان.
And the fourth is that this type of oath, this type of swearing, it's one of the greatest crimes in and of itself. And for this reason, it has a name. It's the, in Arabic, the Yamin al-Ghamus. And this means it's the type of oath that causes someone to be thrown or causes someone to be encompassed. And the meaning here is that it causes them to be thrown into the fire or encompassed into the fire. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whosoever carries out a sales transaction and they make an oath that is not truthful and they are lying in it, then when they meet Allah, Allah will be angry with them.
نسأل الله بمنه وكرمه أن يحفظنا من هذه الأوصاف وهذه الأخلاق الرديئة، وأن يجعلنا على أحسن الأخلاق وأفضل الإيمان، وأن يجعلنا ممن يحفظون أيمانهم. والله تعالى أعلم، وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
بارك الله فيكم شيخنا.
Jazakallah, Sheikh. Jazakallah.
So we ask Allah the Most High to protect us from these characteristics and from being from these categories of people, and we ask Him to grant us with high standards of good character and to make us upon the most upright of character, and we ask Him to send peace and salutations and blessings upon our Prophet Muhammad and upon his family and companions to the day of resurrection.
Jazakallah, Sheikh. Just a few questions, please. I'll start off with one of the first ones, which was, I think, from YouTube. There was the question was saying, with the modern day clothing, with the modern day clothing, does this ruling still apply? I think that with where people are wearing jeans, which just probably goes just below the ankle, and as mentioned, the modern day clothing, does this ruling still apply?
بارك الله فيكم. شيخنا أكرمكم الله، ذكرتم في أثناء المحاضرة أن الإسبال محرم أو حرام. هل هذا الحكم بالحرمة هل يتعلق بالثياب المعاصر مثل البنطلون والجينز وما أشبه ذلك؟ أكرمكم الله.
نعم، وقد ذكرنا هذا في ثنايا الكلام، قلنا أن هذا حكم عام لكل ملابس الرجل التي تصل إلى الكعب، فلا يجوز أن ينزل بها عن الكعب، سروالا أو إزارا أو قميصا، يعني ثوب مثل هذا الذي نلبسه يسمى قميص، فكلها لا يجوز. حتى الإحرام لا يجوز له أن يرخي أسفل الكعب، بل لا بد أن يرفعه فوق على الكعب أو فوق الكعب.
Yes, this is بارك الله فيكم شيخنا. Yes, this is true, that it's applicable, and we mentioned this during the lecture, that this ruling is a general ruling that's applicable to all that the man wears. All that the man wears, from the thawb, from the shirt, or the sirwal, I suppose the undergarment or the bottom garments, even the ihram, even the clothing that the individual, the pilgrim, wears when they make the Hajj or the Umrah. It's not permissible for this to be hanging below the ankle of the individual.
حتى هذا الذي يسمى اليوم بالبنطال، هو بنطال هذه كلمة أعجمية، في العربية يقال له سروال، ولهذا قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يلبس المحرم السراويل ولا القمص ولا البرانس. البرانس هو الثوب المغربي هذا الذي له غطاء رأس معه. فيقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يلبس المحرم سراويل ولا القمص ولا البرانس. فالسراويل هي كل ما لبس على يعني الرجلين كل على حدة تسمى سروال، يسمونه اليوم مأخوذ من الإنجليزية يقولون بنطال، وإلا بالعربية هو اسمه سروال.
جزاكم الله خير شيخنا، فائدة جميلة جدا. And when we look to the I suppose in Arabic you would call them bantal, it's like a version of pantaloons or pants. That the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he used this phrase explicitly, because in pure Arabic there was another word that refers to clothing that goes on each leg like trousers would. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, when he informed the pilgrim of that which they could wear, he mentioned that they are prohibited from wearing pants or trousers, hooded clothes like the clothes that the Moroccans wear, the shirt with the hood, and also the qamis or the long shirts as are worn. So these are all things that are prohibited for the pilgrim to wear.
Okay. For those going on pilgrimage, but you can wear it every day, obviously, but it's just for when you're doing like pilgrimage, Hajj and
لا
Umrah.
لا نعم ايش يقول؟
What's that, Abdul Hakim?
You mentioned about the hooded top and the jeans. That's for just like when you're doing Hajj and Umrah, or it's not everyday clothing that is prohibited. It's just like if you're doing pilgrimage. Is that right?
فشيخنا النهي المتعلق بالسراويل والثياب المغربية، هل هذا متعلق فقط بالمحرم أو عادة في اللباس؟
الآن عندنا مسألتان حتى لا يختلط الناس. عندنا مسألة نوع اللباس، هذا الذي ذكرناه، هذا وقت الإحرام لا يلبس الرجل المحرم، لا يلبس الثياب العادية، سراويل، قميص، برنوس، ما يلبسها من أجل الإحرام. لكن الإسبال محرم فيها كلها، سواء كان في الإحرام أو في غير الإحرام. لا يجوز أن يرخي أسفل الكعبين، حرام لا بإحرام ولا في غير الإحرام.
So here, Jazakumullah khair, Shaykhana, here we have two matters, and we need to make a distinction so that people are not confused as relates to either of them. The first is the type of clothing that we have mentioned. So the trousers, the hooded tops, the normal types of clothes, the shirt, these are prohibited at the time of ihram, at the time when the individual is making pilgrimage to Mecca. So these are the normal clothes that are prohibited at that time. The second matter is the matter of the trousers below the ankles for males. This is something that's not permissible in the state of pilgrimage, nor is it permissible outside the state of pilgrimage. So it's something that's not permissible at all.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. That was just a clarification for myself and anyone else that needed it. There's another question here. I don't know if you've mentioned it already, but I'll briefly mention the question. Let me read it. It says, what about women who drag their clothes on the floor? I don't want to drag my clothes in filth, so I don't wear long gown. I don't wear long hijab.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get that?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, cool.
شيخنا ذكرنا في أثناء المحاضرة أن على النساء أن يطلن أزهارهن بقدر الشبر أو الذراع. فذكرت السائلة أنها لا تريد أن توسخ أو تجر ثيابها في الأوساخ عندما تمشي في الشوارع، فكيف تصنع؟
النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أخبر أنه إذا جرت المرأة، سئل عن هذا فقال الأرض يطهر بعضها بعضا، يعني لو أنه مس بعض التراب فيه ربما نجاسة، التراب الآخر يطهره. لكن نحن نقول يعني ينبغي عليها أن ترخيه بالقدر الذي تغطي يعني قدميها، ليس بالضرورة أن تجعله شبرا تحت القدم، لكن يجب أن تستتر. أما أن ترفعه فتكشف القدم وتكشف الكعب وطرفا من الساق، هذا محرم. نعم.
So yes, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he himself was asked about this matter, and he responded by saying that the earth or the ground, yes, the earth, it purifies itself, meaning that when the individual, when the lady, she walks, perhaps some impurities will touch her garment, but as she continues to walk, those impurities will be purified. So this is what the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said about this matter. And also we say that it's not essential that the garment is extended by a handspan or an arm span beneath the ankle, but what is essential is that the foot, the ankle, and the lower part of the shin, that these are all covered. So they must be covered. This is what is essential.
لكن العجيب أن الرجال لا يهتمون بما اهتمت به هذه الأخت السائلة جزاها الله خير، يرخي ثيابه وهو يعلم أنها ستتسخ ولا يهمه، المهم عنده أن يرخي. ونحن نرى يعني كثير من الناس اليوم أمرهم عجيب، تجد الرجل يلبس مثلا البدلة الكاملة، السروال والقميص والكوت فوقه، وزوجته تمشي إلى جواره صدرها بارز ويعني إلى فخذها مكشوف، وسبحان الله، والرجل ربما لف شالا على رأسه من البرد وهي تتكشف كأنها لا يضرها البرد. سبحان الله.
And the Sheikh said that it's incredible that there are some of the men who do not pay attention as this questioner has paid attention to such matters. May Allah reward her. And you may find that some of the men, they cover up more than their women, such that they'll be covered up. They'll be wearing shirts and trousers and a jacket and a tie, etc. But their partner will be walking around the streets with their chests exposed and their thighs exposed, etc., as though they cannot feel the cold.
Okay, Jazakallah. There's a question here, but I'll summarize it in regards to.
أنا أردت فقط أن أشير إلى الحديث الذي ذكرنا أن الأرض طاهر بعضها بعضا، هو حديث رواه أبو داود والترمذي وابن ماجه وصححه الألباني، ويعني نصه أن امرأة أتت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقالت هي يعني أم ولد لإبراهيم بن عبد الرحمن بن عوف، أنها سألت أم سلمة زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقالت إني امرأة أطيل ذيلي، يعني أطيل الثوب أسفل الكعب، وأمشي في القدر، يعني قد أمر على أوساخ. فقالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يطهره ما بعده.
بارك الله فيكم شيخنا.
لكن نؤكد أن ما دامت أنها تغطي يعني قدمها ولو لم ينزل إلى الأرض فهذا خير، لكن لا يجوز لها أن تكشف القدم.
بارك الله فيكم شيخنا. So we just want to go back to the narration that we have mentioned, and it's a narration that was collected by the Imam Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, and Ibn Majah, and it was declared authentic by Sheikh Al-Albani, may Allah have mercy upon him, whereby a woman went and she asked the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, وشيخنا السائلة كانت سلمة أو
لا، السائلة هي أم ولد لعبد الرحمن بن عوف، يعني لإبراهيم بن عبد الرحمن بن عوف، يعني أنها كانت جارية وتسرى بها فأنجبت له ولدا فصارت حرة، هذه تسمى أم ولد.
ما شاء الله. So she was the yes, so a woman asked Salama, and she was the woman who asked was the mother of Ibrahim ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, may Allah be pleased with them. She asked Salama, indeed, when I go and when I walk, my lower garment, it follows me, and perhaps I might pick up impurities. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that those impurities are purified by the dragging or that which comes after it. So the emphasis of this hadith and the emphasis of this matter is really that the foot it must be covered. And it's not permissible for the foot to be uncovered.
طيب جزاك الله خير Sheikh. How about the woman who just wears a headscarf but you can see her neck, and she just wears a dress or a t-shirt or a jumper with the headscarf? In regards to the hijab, can we just clarify that, because there's another question about it, so just clarify what can be covered in regards to a woman and what can't be covered. In regards to the men as well, what can be covered and what should be what should be covered then. I think it's from the shin, but if you can just quickly mention that as well, inshallah, because I just had two questions about it.
So it's basically what should be covered from the men, what should be covered from the women, right?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Essentially. شيخنا ما هي الأمور التي تجب غطاؤها للمرأة وللرجل وضوابطها أو نعم بارك الله فيكم.
أما ما يجب على الرجل أمام الرجال فهو من السرة إلى الركبة، هذا من باب الوجوب. وأما الكمال فهو أن يغطي جسده كله. وأما المرأة فأمام مثيلاتها من النساء فتغطي جسدها، اللهم إلا ما يعني لا يكون فيه كشف لعورة، كاليد من الزند وأعلى الصدر ويعني شيء من الساقين، يجوز لها أن تكشفه أمام النساء، لكن لا يجوز لها أن تكشف أكثر من ذلك أمام النساء. وأما أمام الرجال فإن الرجال على ثلاثة أقسام: رجل يجوز أن تكشف له كل شيء وهو الزوج فقط، ورجال يجوز أن تكشف لهم ما تكشفه للنساء، معنى ذلك يعني اليد من منتصف الزند ويعني من منتصف الساق إلى أسفل، هذا يجوز أن تكشفه للأب والعم والخال والابن والأخ. ورجال لا يجوز أن تكشف أمامهم أي شيء من جسدها، وهم كل رجل غير من ذكرنا، غير الزوج وغير المحارم، فإنه لا يجوز لها أن تكشف أمامه أي شيء، لا وجها ولا رقبة ولا ذراعا ولا ساقا، فإن هذا يحرم إلا في الصلاة، وأيضا إن لم يكن في المكان رجال أجانب، لأنه حتى لو كان في المكان رجال أجانب يجب عليه أن تغطي وجهها في الصلاة. نعم، وكذلك في الإحرام.
نعم شيخنا جزاكم الله خير. So as for the men, then if the men are in front of other men, then what they have to cover and what's obligatory upon them to cover is from the navel to the knee. This is what must be covered. But what's complete and what's better is that they cover more than this. They cover their bodies in a general sense. As for the women, then there are different categories. If we look at the woman in front of other women of her like, then there are some things that she is allowed to uncover. So, for example, from the halfway of her forearm, she can uncover this. Her neck, the halfway point of her shin and below, she is allowed to uncover this in front of other women. So this is the woman in front of other women. As for the woman in front of men, then there are three categories of men as relates to her, and dependent on the category, she is allowed to expose a varying degree. So the first category is for her husband, or to whom she is lawfully wedded, and it's permissible for her to uncover her body in her entirety to her husband. The second category is her close relatives. So, for example, her uncle, paternal, maternal uncles, her brother, her son, etc. It's permissible for her to uncover that which she could uncover towards other women. So, meaning the halfway point of the arm, the neck, the halfway point of the shin and below, these areas can be covered. The third category are those who are other than category number 1 and 2. So other than her close family and other than her husband. So all of these men, she must be covered in her entirety. And if she's even if she is praying and there are males around who might be able to see her, even in the state of prayer, she must cover her face. And even in the state of ihram, in the state of pilgrimage, she must cover her face if there are non or strange men who are likely to see her. جزاكم الله خير شيخنا.
جزاك الله خير شيخ.
طيب لعلنا نختم هنا إن شاء الله، ننتهي لأن الوقت طال بنا. والله نعم.
Barakallahu fikum, Shaykhana. So we will stop here and we'll pause here as the time is quite late with the Sheikh in Saudi Arabia, and he's been teaching, mashallah tabarakallah, for quite some time. May Allah accept his efforts and increase him.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Okay.
لكن أحببت فقط أن أبلغكم سلام الشيخ مقبل، دكتور مقبل، وهو إن شاء الله سيكون معنا في برنامج رمضان وإن شاء الله في برنامج الصيف.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. And also I would like to give you the glad tidings and the extension of the Islamic greeting of salam to all of you from the esteemed Dr. and Sheikh Muqbil Al-Harbi, who has delivered some guest sessions here with us. And we also give the glad tidings that he will be joining us in our Ramadan program and also over the summer by the will of Allah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah, Sheikh. Jazakallah. We're going to continue the classes from every Sunday, inshallah. And as the Sheikh mentioned, we'll be increasing the classes during Ramadan with lectures as well as, inshallah, Quran classes during the month of Ramadan, inshallah. For those who want to catch up, you can visit the website, islamfordeaf.co.uk, and you can support on there as well, inshallah. Jazakallah Haran, Jazakallah Haran Sheikh, Jazakallah Haran Akil, and thank you very much, Tom. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.